Hello everyone, this is Ryan from the ProfitTrailer team, also known as RF Radio, on the ProfitTrailer Discord support server as well as elsewhere on the internet. In this video I'm going to be going over one of the new additions to the strategies for ProfitTrailer version 2, namely the Stochastic Oscillator strategy. So this one will be both a buying and selling strategy, and in order to understand it a little further, let's go take a look over here at the Wiki. So I just click on my Wiki link down here at the bottom of my monitoring page, come to the welcome page, and then down to trading, and click buy and sell strategies. So back into this matrix here, we find Stochastic Oscillator here on the left towards the bottom of the matrix. It's just abbreviated as STOCH, or STOCH as we call it for short. And you'll notice here across the entire chart it's got the check marks. So normal buy, normal sell, DCA buy, and DCA sell. This can be used for all methods of buying and selling. So if we go ahead and click on this link here, it'll take us down to the appropriate article where it gives us a little bit of an insight into what Stochastic Oscillator is and how it works for ProfitTrailer. So there's a summary definition for this at stockcharts.com, as well as one of my favorite websites for this, investopedia.com, which I show you right here. So there's a couple of good articles right there off the bat to go take a look at to get a better understanding of what this is. But in a nutshell, the Stochastic Oscillator is a momentum indicator. So it shows the close relative to the high and low range over a set number of periods. So if, say, you set it as the industry standard, which is 14 periods for your high-low range, then you will see, looking at the close of a candle relative to the high and low range over the past 14 candles. So that's essentially how it's calculated here. And there's a formula here showing how the value for ProfitTrailer is calculated. But first we need to understand what these are. So stochastics is measured with a %K line and the %D line. So the %K line is calculated by this big thing right here. So it takes the most recent closing price, subtracts off the lowest low of the prior periods that you specified for your range. So if you're using 14 candles, then this would be the lowest point in the last 14 candles of the range. So, and then it's the highest price traded during the same length of period. So the highest high of the prior 14 candles minus the low of the previous 14 candles, right? If you're using 14 for your length. So that would be this section here, the H minus L, and then it's all multiplied by 100. So you have your close minus the low divided by the absolute high to low range of the prior 14 candles, all multiplied by 100. That gets you the %K line. And then the %D line is calculated as the moving average of the K line. And it's good. Basically, that's also calculated as the moving average over the prior 3 periods. This is typically what's used for that. That would be how you get the D and K, and then we use the %D line that we use for your particular value. So for your buy or your sell value, it's going to be taking off the %D line. So how do we visualize this? So if we go over to, oops. I'm missing my chart. There it is, my chart. Here on tradingview.com, I have this charted here. Now, there are no bot indicators yet for this particular strategy. I don't know if there's going to be, but it may or may not be in the works at this point. What I'm using here is actually the Stochastic Oscillator indicator for TradingView. I just looked it up in the indicators here at the top and went and searched for Stochastic Oscillator and favorited it, because if you want to use it again, I highly recommend using the little favorite function. Anyways, I'm getting off topic here. So what we're looking at here, if we look at the inputs and everything, so the D line in the case of ProfitTrailer defaults to an orange color, and that is what we are using for our buy and sell value. So if we look here at the right hand side on the column here, this is essentially a 0 to 100 value. So this is in a percentage for your buy and sell value. Now it does use whole numbers, it does not use the decimal representation of a percentage. So just remember, if you're going to input a buy value of say 20, then it actually has to say buy value equals 20 not buy value equals 0.2. So just remember that. So this orange line is what we're actually following for our signal for buy and sell within ProfitTrailer. Let's go take a look back here at our bot and look in the config. Click up here to config, mouse over that, you get to the menu, and click pairs. So I have here in my default buy settings, I actually have two buy strategies set up right now. I'm using a combination on this particular example of low BB and stochastic oscillator. Now bear in mind, this is just an example. I have not fully tested this, so if you want to use this setting, please use at your own risk. Now you may also notice I also have stochastic oscillator set as one of my sell values, but we will get to that in a bit. First we're going to look at stochastic oscillator as a buying strategy. So I have here the stoch put in for my buy strategy and my buy value as 20. Now I have not set a buy value limit, but your lowest buy value limit that you could set is 0. So if you wanted to use it below 0, you can't. The only values allowable are positive numbers, and they range from 0 to 100. So I have it set at 20, which is actually, if we were to look at the chart here, I have this dotted line on the lower edge of my range, and that's actually the default setting for this particular indicator on TradingView. It also happens to be the industry standard for tracking whether a position is considered to be oversold, or whether a particular asset is considered to be oversold at that point. So if it dips below the 20 line, traditionally in market trading, the stochastic oscillator, the 20% line is seen as the oversold identifier. So when things go below that, they consider it to be oversold, and a lot of people would say, hey, there's a good buying opportunity right there. So that's where I actually park my buying indicator for stochastic oscillator on ProfitTrailer. I wanted to buy down in that 20% or lower range. And then for DCA, it's set up exactly the same way as your pairs config, except you also have to take into account the buy trigger and the trailing buy, if you so choose to use trailing buy. So if I have here in the DCA settings, I have my default A strategy as stochastic oscillator and the buy value at 20, again, just like I had on my pairs. Now you can make this lower if you want, or greater if you want. There's no requirement to use 20. I just use that as my example because that is the traditional industry standard for this. Now remember, this value will not be looked at in terms of your buying value until your buy triggers have been met. So if you're only on rebuy number 1, and in this case I have it set to -5 for my buy triggers. So first the coin has to drop 5% in value from its average price, and then it will start running the buy strategy for stochastic oscillator, and then it'll factor in trailing buy and attempt to buy. So 3 things have to go on, just like any of the other strategies. So now we get an understanding of how we set this up in pairs and in DCA. Let's go take a look at the chart here to see how these correspond to the price movements here. Let's remember, stochastic oscillator is actually measuring the momentum of the price movement. So if we take a look at what we have here on the chart, I am currently looking at the true USD priced in Bitcoin, 15-minute candles on Bittrex. So if we look down here at our stochastic oscillator, we see the orange line here. We see it moving down into this low dip right here on this chart, but we see also it's moving into a low point here on the price chart. And we notice when it's near its low point here, we see the stochastic oscillator dip down and almost touch that 20 line. It looks very, very close, but it's actually only at 20.1526 right there. Now earlier, like when this particular candle was near its bottom, it's conceivable that this indicator probably did drop below the 20% line. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Your closed history, when you're looking at this, after the candles have already closed, that's not necessarily going to be exactly what it shows you here on the oscillator history as well, because if it dipped like it did here, went below where it actually closed at, it is very, very possible that this indicator also went down below the 20% line and could have had a good buy signal there. So as we see, as it moves up, the steeper the rise here, on the stochastic oscillator, the faster the price is rising, is what I've noticed about this oscillator, this indicator. And we notice as it gets towards the top, we're in this peak at this point here, right? And all of a sudden it drops off. So as the price moves up and then moves down, we see this moves slightly ahead of it in a way. Because the theory with the stochastic oscillator is that the momentum precedes price movement, or gives an indicator of where the price is moving to, and the momentum has to be there before the price to follow. So that's another interesting thing to keep in mind about this. So you had a couple of selling opportunities here above the 80% line. So there's actually where I have my sell strategy set for this one, but getting ahead of myself again. You see it actually moves down in to this point here, and we see another buying opportunity down below in the 20%. You notice it didn't dip as far, but we see it does show that downward and upward movements. There is the momentum indication here. Now let's actually go take a look at stochastic oscillator as a sell strategy. It is actually simpler than the buy strategy, simply because you don't have a buy value limit to set if you wanted to. And it's essentially going to look at the sell value and above in order to sell. So opposite of how it's going to buy. So when it's buying, stochastic oscillator is going to look at your buy value and below in order to buy, and then when it's trying to sell, it's going to look at your sell value and above to try and sell. So this is much simpler setup, and it's set up exactly the same way between pairs and DCA. You can use a different sell value for DCA if you wish, but the way it functions is going to be exactly the same. And in the case of multiple buy strategies, remember it's going to satisfy them all, and then your trailing profit begins. Now if we wanted to look at this on the chart, we see here as the price rises above the 80% line, if this is set as our potential or set as our selling target, you could actually set this up by itself. It doesn't have to work with the other strategies except for gain. It has to work with gain. But you don't have to use it with low BB and high BB like I'm showing in my example. You can use stochastic oscillator on its own with the gain in order to set your buy and sell points. But you see it tends to follow very nicely with the volatile movements in it, mainly because this is plotting momentum. So as a coin moves up sharply, it's going to move up sharply. As a coin moves down, it's going to move down, so on and so forth. So it's an attempt to try and follow the market, if you will, and give you potential buy and sell signals. That's about all I have on the stochastic oscillator. If you like what you see in this video, go ahead and hit that like button down below. Please consider subscribing, and if you want to get any updates as to when we post new videos and content, go ahead and hit that little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. As always, stay safe, happy trading, and we will see you on the next video where I go into stochastic RSI. If you need any help with your ProfitTrailer client, please consult the wiki at wiki.profittrailer.com. And if you still have more questions, don't hesitate to join us over on the Discord support server following the link on your screen.